Okay, welcome everyone to Accessible Tech Thursdays with what's hopefully a well-timed mental health webinar. I'm Neil Beck from National Star College, and we're also joined today with Erica Smith. Hi, Erica.
Hi, everyone.
And we're going to take you through a bit of a very short introduction to kind of the context of mental health. We're going to go through a little bit about what we've learned during the time so far. We're going to talk a little bit about healthy technology usage, and then we're going to finish up with some really useful solutions, hopefully, that will give you something to take away. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask them throughout. We'll either pick them up as we go along, we'll have them at the end. And yeah, feel free to comment and let us know what you think. And also, we're thinking this might be a really good resource for parents. So if there's anything that you want to take and share, feel free. We've created these resources so that they can be shared around. Okay, so mental health. We put this slide in because we wanted to give you an idea of what today is for and what it isn't for, really. There's a kind of green to red scale here in this diagram, right the way from healthy through to reacting, through to injured, through to ill. Now, the point that we're dealing with today really is that green and yellow section, which is healthy and reacting. So we're looking at normal functioning, common and reversible distress, things that you can manage, and those are the things that we'll be providing you with. Obviously, if there's, neither myself nor Erica are trained mental health professionals, so if you need that professional care, then that would be outside of our remit today. We're looking at keep kind of maintaining and dealing with those kind of smaller things before they get bigger. So with that in mind, we'll talk a little bit about the age element. So children aged 5 to 16, 1 in 10 of them have a diagnosable condition. Half of all mental problems are established by the age of 14, which I think we're all quite worried about right now with what's going on. And 3/4 of all mental health problems are established by the age of 24. So these formative years are really really challenging, and especially the situation we're in right now. So it's important that we do what we can. So what does mental health cover? There are specific diagnoses. This can be mixed anxiety and depression, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, phobias, obsessive compulsive disorder, and panic disorder. And these sources are all available from Mind, so you can follow the links there. And if you want to know any more about those individual items. There are some higher risk groups, so people who are higher at risk of difficulties with mental health. That includes people who identify as LGBTIQ, and they're between 2 to 3 times more likely to report having a mental health problem in England. Also worth mentioning that Black or Black British people will experience a common mental health problem in any given week at a rate of 23%, compared to 17% of white British people. For learning disabilities, this is also another risk factor. So between 25% and 40% of people with learning disabilities also experience mental health problems. For children and young people, the prevalence rate is 36% in children and adolescents with learning disabilities, compared to 8% of those who did not have a learning disability. So this is one of the reasons we put this into this webinar, because we know that it happens kind of in tandem with disabilities so often. So these young people were also 33 more times likely to be on the autistic spectrum. And with this in mind, we've focused on one particular app later on, which will focus on a solution for those on the autistic spectrum. So I'm going to hand you over to Erica now to discuss a little bit about what we've learned.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, I was just thinking about, I daren't say, the first lockdown or the second lockdown, but actually what have we learned in the last, 9 months specifically? And actually, I personally think that visual contact with pupils and families is so important. I know I said to Neil before, there is something about, and I'm sure you've had it in your schools and settings, looking into the whites of people's eyes and, over email, over messages and text, it can be quite easy to fob us off if people are struggling. And I think it's when you look at, pupils or families or carers, whoever's at home, and it's like, actually, are you okay and are you coping? And I think if people struggle to ask for help, technology gives us that tool to be able to have that face-to-face contact as much as possible. Something we found from doing remote learning before was allowing time before those live lessons so that our pupils can kind of have maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes to socialise with their peers, because actually for some of them it could be the only time they get to see a different face within the week. We're not always aware of what's going on at home. Throughout a lot of the slides today, we're looking at supporting not only our pupils' mental health, but our staff, especially given the workload demands at the moment, and our parents and families as well, because it is very much that life vest approach. If we don't support our parents and staff, then they're not going to be effective to support our pupils as well. So, and as Neil said before, if we have any concerns, we would follow the normal processes if we were in school, if we felt someone needed that greater level of support. But in order to support them using technology, have our parents got the skills to use technology so that we can do remote sessions with them? And equally, I know within our setting at the moment, we've got 50% of pupils in school and 50% of pupils doing remote learning. Have staff got the skills? Do they feel supported enough to be doing that and using technology for that? Because if they're not supported, then that again is going to affect their mental health. So I think it's using what we've learned in the previous few months, and actually it's not always about using the technology to engage. What are the analytics telling us? So actually, if we've got families that aren't engaging with us, then that could be an indicator that it could be due to not having the right skills, but it could be an indicator that they're not coping. So within our school, if we had, say, 5% of families who weren't engaged with our virtual learning environment, then we would, increase our face-to-face visits, at the doorstep visits and things like that. So sometimes it's not always using technology directly, it's using the analytics and seeing what is that information giving us. So thanks, Neil.
Great. Thanks, Erica. Some good points there. So we're going to talk a little bit now about safe technology usage. So this I thought was quite an important quote from Amy Orban, who's a psychologist at the Oxford Internet Institute. Important nuance is missing if we talk about digital technologies in general. Scrolling through skinny Instagram models will naturally have very different effects than Skyping your grandmother or chatting with your school classmates. So I think we're looking here about how we control this in manageable ways and recognize that technology usage can be good, but can also be negative. So within Android, there is a tool called Wind Down. So this is built in, and it's from Google, and it puts your phone in a do not disturb mode. You can choose when it starts and when it finishes. It doesn't allow you to blanket disable most of your apps like the iOS does. And there is a grayscale mode where all the colors drain from your phone screen. And that's because they found that your brain has a connection with the bright colors and seeks more of that to get a dopamine hit. So yeah, in grayscale, it just helps to wind down. For Apple, they've got downtime. So this allows you to set a few apps that can always be used, like phone or text messaging app, but it blocks all the others. And the blocked apps will be darkened on your home screen. So it's quite useful when you're looking at students who are maybe overusing certain apps at certain times when you don't want them to. There's also within Windows, there's the Microsoft Family Groups on Windows 10 that allows you to put everyone in your family who has a free Microsoft account under one digital umbrella. It's managed on a website where you can change settings and limit screen time for yourself or your children. So really good that that's all built into Apple, Google, and Windows. They've all responded to that. There's some really good resources from the NSPCC around specific topics. So they cover resources around sexting and sending nudes. They cover talking to your child about online safety, inappropriate online content, online games, live streaming and online video apps, and online porn. So there's some really good protective resources there. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the solutions and some of the things that you might find useful. So I'm going to be handing over to Erica to talk about the first of these.
Thanks, Neil. So I was very kindly given these, advice about these apps from our local advisory teacher. So I always think it's useful to speak to somebody who has actually used them. I know Neil and I, when we talk about assistive technology, it's about there's thousands of products and apps out there, and it's always good to kind of hear the reviews and see which ones really work. So I spent quite a while downloading them this week and getting to grips with them. Dreamy Kid is really for all age children. It's on iOS and there's a web-based option as well. Lots of positive affirmations, meditations and healing activities, and focuses on some specific meditations to support various needs such as ADD, ADHD and eating disorders, and some nice sleep sound and stories. I think Neil mentions another app later on that helps around, healthy sleeping patterns, which I think is really important for getting children out of bed the next morning and having them ready to learn. Next slide. So Headspace, again, is an app that can be used with anybody and is available on the iOS and Android. And it teaches teaches everybody really how to meditate. It is free for the unemployed. So obviously it's free. Everyone has options to the basic features. And there is the free built-in app purchases for the unemployed. And again, there's focuses on sleeping soundly as well, and they're all similar, but I think depending on different learners, and a lot of these can be done as a class activity. So it might be something that if you've got a support staff or a teacher that can do this as part of a kind of guided meditation time, rather than just all teaching, rather than just curriculum content. I think it is quite nice because we do quite a bit on meditation within school, within our normal curriculum anyway. So I think it is important not to forget that. I know there's a pressure of kind of forcing the curriculum content down, but I think this is quite a nice activity that can be done remotely as well, or within the classroom. So I forgot, Neil take it. The Breathe, Think and Do from Sesame Street. This is really cute. It's really teaching those early problem solving skills, self-control and kind of persistence. So one of the activities is, the monster, don't ask me to name, I'm past my Sesame Street days, so I couldn't tell you what the character's called, but he can't put his shoes on. So rather than getting angry and throwing them, it's kind of teaching us problem solving and breaking it down in kind of a gamey way. So it's nice for very much for early years and kind of reception age pupils. Mindful Powers is nice because it's teaching that mindful play. So it's called a Flibbertigibbet, I think he's called, the little character, and it's about if he's feeling anxious and what things that you can do. So if he's feeling shy, and there's like nice kind of activities around that. And what I quite liked was the focus times. There's a little timer, so it might be that you do something and you concentrate on it for 10 minutes. So again, it's just another nice option. Chill Panda. What jumped out to me is if anyone's kind of familiar with zones of regulation, depending on how we're feeling at that moment, there's different activities depending on where pupils' state of mind is. So I quite like that. And I didn't know until I had looked into it that it's actually being tested by the NHS, which I thought was quite interesting. And again, that's available on iOS and Android, and teaches some good breathing techniques, which I think is really good for children and adults, really. Mindful naps. You can tell you're kind of moving towards your older child. It's very much a gaming. There's a lot of games around this kind of gaming culture. Exercises to raise awareness of your body, your physical being, your mind, and then the environment around you, and like how different sounds and different senses will impact on your well-being. So that's quite good. So that's really for your kind of year 5, 6, going into year 7. Smiling Mind. This was quite interesting. This was actually developed by education staff and psychologists, and I think this is quite a high profile one. It's used quite a lot in Australia, and they do a lot around those preemptive mental health and kind of looking at young adults, really, and different mindfulness programs. So again, this is another free app.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Erica. I was quite interested in this one. I hadn't heard of it before. Are there any limits because it's an Australian app, or does it work just the same?
I think not that I'm aware of. I think our advisory teacher uses it quite a bit, so I think I haven't personally used it. When she said this is a really good one, when I've had a look, the reviews are great on it, and I think it's quite a widely used one. I'm definitely going to refer this. Well, I'm going to point this one for our teachers at school. Yeah. And then Insight Time, which I had heard about, is kind of guided meditation, and I think there's quite a lot of celebrities. So for me personally, I know that Russell Brand. So I think he actually not only uses it, but he speaks on this as well. So I think there's thousands and thousands of guided meditation. And I mean, I've put for secondary pupils, but really, this could our parents and staff could also benefit from this as well.
Okay, great. Thanks for those, Erica. Some ones that I'm definitely going to be checking out there. I think it's good to have some primary level ones as well. One of the feedbacks through the demonstrator program is that there's maybe not enough technology that's assistive technology that's aimed at primary level. So I think it's really good to have a focus on that. So there's a few apps that I found useful, and these have come from carrying out assessments and working out what learners' needs are. So these have come from specific needs that learners have. Dailyo is the first one that we're starting with. It's a mood tracker. It's free on Android and iOS. There's a really simple user interface and a really detailed output. And what I really like about it is the visuals. So on the left-hand side of the picture there, you can see how are you? You can answer with rad all the way to awful with different clear symbols. And then you can also say what you've been up to at the time. And this is really useful if you're checking in with learners maybe once a week or maybe less or maybe more often. And you can see what they've been up to and how they've been feeling at the same time. And it can work as a really good memory aid and to help understanding why someone is feeling that way. You can identify those points in the week that are maybe giving problems, and it can help the individual as well take ownership and understand a little bit about why they're feeling the way they are. I've included an extra slide here just giving you an idea of what the outputs look like. They're really good, really clear, and they're the kind of things that learners themselves can have a look at and understand, and it just starts to get a bit more of a feeling of control back. Nutrition, I think, is changing so quickly, and I've noticed the apps change around this. So rather than give some that are kind of on trend at the moment, recognizing that we might have people coming back to this resource, I wanted to include the NHS site, which has a category of healthy living apps, and these are being reviewed, changed all the time, and I think that's really valuable. So that's where I'd recommend going if you want to cover nutrition as part of mental health. Sleep Town is a really useful app to if you want to gamify the process of controlling when you use your phone, and it's about developing healthy sleeping patterns. So if I'm about to go to sleep, I set my I have my timer set of when I want to go to sleep within a certain range of time, and then when I want to wake up within a certain range of time. If I don't use my phone within those hours, as agreed, then what will happen is I'll get a house in the morning, and over time you build up a town. So there's a really nice visual representation. I think I tried this first when I was working on a project, and I think I ended up with one house after a few days. It didn't go very well. It's free with some premium options, so where you can join with friends and things like that, which has some benefits. There are customizable goals, so you can change these around. And then if you're looking for something that does the same in a workday, so if you want a learner to concentrate for a short amount of time, say 20 minutes, an hour, or however long it is, then consider using Forest, because it's the same process, only they grow a tree, and then you end up with a bigger forest as time goes on. There's also one of, we said earlier that we'd be talking a little bit about autism, and there's a particular app that I think is really useful to show, as it's been approved by Student Finance England, funded via Disabled Students Allowance, and can be purchased by a private license. So it's quite widely recognised. I know some local authorities have taken it on, and it aims to be a complete support tool. And I've got a video here that could be a good outline to give you an idea of how it works. Let me just minimize my video.
Now, an estimated 700,000 people are living with autism in the UK alone. Across the world, more and more people are being diagnosed with the condition. April the 2nd is World Autism Awareness Day, which aims to help us all to understand more about the challenges faced by people with autism on a daily basis. High levels of anxiety are one of the most common difficulties faced by people on the spectrum. And Paul Carter has been looking at some of the technologies which aim to help manage the stress levels.
What seems to be clear is that the anxieties around autism are very individualised. A cloud-based software that's now offered by some areas on the NHS giving personalised solutions is called Brain in Hand. This system is also based on established therapies and coaching, and rests on health professionals working with users to devise answers for particular situations. When users become anxious, they use the Brain in Hand app to access the solutions that have already been programmed in for them. A worry that third-year university student Rosie King has is getting lost. The app gives her solutions and helps manage her emotions whenever this happens.
There's a logical part of my brain that knows everything's going to be fine and you're going to get home just fine. But there's a bigger part of my head that's banging pots and pans, screaming, you failed, we're lost, we're never gonna get home, what are we gonna do?
The app's anxiety monitor helps Rosie reflect on how she's feeling and prompts her on pre-arranged tasks. But something that's especially comforting is the 24/7 red button backup that connects her to a real-life person.
I've tried just doing the best that I can on log course for a bit. I'm just really freaking out. I only use the red alarm service when I'm really at my worst, when I'm really low and I can't control myself and I really need to talk to somebody, and that somebody is always there, and that just feels great for somebody in my situation.
Okay, so that was Brain in Hand. I originally, when I first saw Brain in Hand as a solution, I thought it was a really expensive app. But then when I had some recommendations from people of how well it had worked with particular learners, I looked a bit more into it, and having that complete support network is really useful. And what they actually found was with the traffic light system is that generally learners, after using that for a while, become comfortable just knowing that it's there, and they don't end up using it too much. If you're supporting that person with autism as well, there's a really good report screen where you can see when they've reported how well they're doing. So you can hopefully see lots of green kind of reporting backs on how well they're doing. You can have it prompted to come up as much as the individual wants. And you can also see where the oranges are creeping in, and you can continually change their support and kind of deal with any flashpoints or areas that are cropping up. So that's Brain in Hand. They've got really good resources on their website. We can look at more videos, and yeah, it's also useful specifically for mental health, not just those on the autistic spectrum. So it can help a wide range of people. So that brings us to the end of our mental health webinar. Hopefully you've got some really useful tools there to go away and try. We'd love to hear back from you. If there's anything that you found really useful, then please let us know. And we'll make sure that all the links are available on our shared drive. You can visit our main site here, bit.ly/ATTHURS, and that will be where you can find all upcoming links and all previous webinars. And on the previous webinars, there'll be a folder and link underneath each one where you can go and access all these slides and resources, so you can send them home to parents. You can pull individual ones out. We really want you to use them and how you see fit. So next week, this time next week, we've got a sensory webinar. So we'll be going through lots of things about sensory education, which should be quite interesting. We'll be keeping that going at the end a little bit longer as well, if anyone has any drop-in questions, or we'll be dealing with questions that we've received during the time between the now and the last one. Thanks, Erica, for all your input. If anyone wants to sign up for more assistance, if you've seen anything interesting today, then visit edtech-demonstrator.lgfl.net. We've also got our YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook links along the side there. And thank you for listening, and thank you, Erica, for all you've provided.
Thanks, Neil.